Now you can see I've gone all the way around, doing my buttonhole stitch along the outside edge, capturing the wire. That florist wire cuts very easily with a pair of scissors, so I've snipped it off and made one stitch past where I've snipped the wire, and then I've worked my way up from behind up through a couple of sections of the outside of the buttonhole stitch. And now I need to secure and tie off this thread, so I'm going to go very carefully under a stitch of the previously worked buttonhole stitch along that edge, and I'm going to pull it and go in through a couple more if I can get through them. This is always tricky, and if you've done your stitches very tightly, you sometimes cannot get your needle through there. And I have done my stitches quite tight to catch that wire. If the stitches aren't quite as tight, you can go through several at a time. And that will help hold that stitch from unraveling. It's very difficult when you're using this large needle as well. Okay. And now I'm just going to run my stitch through to the back. We hope. So that when I do cut the thread, that's where it will be cut from on the back side. As I said, this is a lot easier when your needle isn't quite so large. Alright, so we have that. I have another thread at the top that's done the same way in the gold. And now to remove the lace from the pattern, the paper pattern, I have an X-Acto knife, and you do want to be careful with this and cut very carefully. But you simply open the 2 layers of cloth and cut the stitches, just the stitches. You really don't want to cut the cloth. It can be reused at least once, sometimes more, but it gets knots in it from threads that you've tied, and at this point I can't really see well enough to cut just the stitches, but the idea is to cut just the stitches. Once you get it started, it gets a little easier. You just hold a little tension on the 2 pieces of cloth. Now this is the sewing machine stitching that I'm cutting through at the moment. And it's of course a little harder to cut through. If you'd done this by hand, it wouldn't be quite as difficult to cut. The reason you go between the 2 cloths is so that you don't cut your actual piece of lace as you're going. You're behind the paper, obviously, that this pattern is on, and you're behind a layer of cloth. Sorry for the pause, I was concentrating on not cutting my fingers. When you get to the area where the lace is, you want to be very careful and not go too far. Cut that free. And you'll see that your lace comes free from the work. and because it has a wire, can be shaped. So I'm going to cut the rest free, and then I'll show you what the final piece looks like.